Welcome back to the deep dive. We are continuing our exploration of The Wise Woman Code by Michelle Rice. And if you were with us last time, you know the drill. We're not looking at this as some standard self-help book. This isn't about fixing someone who's broken.
Yeah.
It's really a framework for, I guess, alignment.
Yeah.
Specifically for that capable, accomplished woman who, well, she looks great on paper. She has the resume, the position. But inside, she feels, divided, frantic.
The whole premise is that her power isn't gone.
Yeah.
It's inaccessible because of all the internal noise.
Mm.
And so today we're moving into part 1, chapter 2. The title is Just Breathe.
Okay, I have to stop you right there. Just breathe. I'm going to be honest, when I see that, whether it's a chapter title or on an Instagram post, my immediate reaction is just an eye roll. It feels so dismissive,
Yeah.
like telling a grounding person to just swim. Is that really where we're at?
That reaction is. It's
Wow.
completely valid. And actually, Rice anticipates it. The thing is, in our culture, breathwork has become a bit diluted. It's often presented as something soft, for the spa, or something almost mystical.
Mm.
But in this manual, her approach is totally different. Rice strips all of that away. This isn't about incense and vibes. It's about mechanics.
Mechanics.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
that's a word I can get behind.
It's the crucial distinction.
Yeah.
So before we get into the mechanics, let's just quickly anchor ourselves. In chapter 1, we talk about stillness.
Hmm.
And the whole focus there was on creating a foundation of awareness. You have to stop moving to really see where you are.
Right. We said how uncomfortable that can be, because when you stop running, you finally feel how tired you are or how tight your chest is. Stillness is kind of the diagnosis.
Exactly. And that makes chapter 2 the immediate treatment.
Yeah.
If stillness exposes the chaos, breath is the first active tool to address it. And the core thesis of this chapter, it really anchors the entire book. Breath is the bridge between mind and body.
Breath is the bridge. Okay, let's unpack that. Because usually when I'm stressed, I try to use my mind to fix my mind. I try to think my way out of it. I tell myself, stop worrying or get it together. Why does Rice insist on going to the breath first? Why not just jump straight to mindset work?
Because of the mechanism of speed. It's about efficiency, which is something high achievers tend to appreciate. The manual argues that breath is the fastest way to influence your emotional state, significantly faster than thought.
Faster than thought. Really?
Think about it physiologically. Thoughts are really difficult to command directly. If you're in an anxiety spiral, you can't just force your mind to be calm. The neural pathways for stress are just firing way too rapidly. The brain's in a threat state. Trying to think yourself calm is like trying to grab a spinning fan blade with your bare hand.
That is a very visceral image and very accurate. It usually just makes me more stressed because now I'm stressed that I'm stressed.
That's the loop. But the breath is a physical lever. It's part of your autonomic nervous system, the system that controls things automatically, like your heart rate. But it's the only part of that system you can take immediate manual control over. You can't will your heart to slow down. You can't command your digestion. But you can decide right now to exhale for 5 seconds.
So it's like a back door into the body's operating system.
It's the master switch. When you're under pressure, a conflict, a deadline, a tough conversation, your breathing pattern changes instantly. It gets shallow, rapid, it moves right up into the chest.
And I usually don't even notice, or if I do, I think it's helping me. I think, okay, I'm in the zone, I'm energized. Isn't that adrenaline good for something?
There's a big difference between being in the zone and being dysregulated. And the manual is very sharp on this point. Shallow breathing sends a clear signal to your brain. It says, we are under threat. The brain responds by dumping more cortisol, more adrenaline into the system. And that creates a feedback loop. Your body shifts into survival mode. And in survival mode, your peripheral vision narrows. Your ability to think creatively with any nuance, it just shuts down. You become purely reactive.
So while I feel like I'm powering through, I'm actually cognitively impaired.
You're operating with limited resources. Rice's core argument here is that you cannot shift your thought patterns until you first shift your body. The body has to signal safety before the mind can find any clarity.
Okay, let's get into the how, the physiology of this. Because I think most of us know about fight or flight, but we kind of treat it like it only happens if a bear is chasing us. We don't realize it's happening when we open a passive-aggressive email.
To the brain, there is no difference between the bear and the email. The biological reaction is identical. So to understand the tool, you have to look at the two branches of the autonomic nervous system. First, you have the sympathetic nervous system. That's the gas pedal. It mobilizes energy, prepares you for action.
That's the state most of us high performers live in, right? We've just got the gas pedal taped to the floor.
Often, yes. And then you have the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the brake.
Mm-hmm.
This is your rest and digest system. It conserves energy. It facilitates recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And here is the specific physiological lever that Chapter 2 really hinges on.
Mm-hmm.
The inhale is linked to the sympathetic system. It actually slightly increases your heart rate. The exhale is linked to the parasympathetic system. It acts as the brake.
Wait, hold on. So every time I breathe in, I'm hitting the gas, and every time I breathe out, I'm hitting the brake.
In a very micro sense, yes. It's called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. It's a sign of a healthy heart.
Yeah.
But when we're stressed, what do? We take these short, sharp inhales and very short exhales. We're just pumping the gas pedal over and over again.
We're basically hyperventilating, even if it's really subtle.
It's often called email apnea. Holding your breath or breathing shallowly while you're concentrating. The instruction in the manual focuses so heavily on lengthening the exhale. And it's not arbitrary. A longer exhale physically lowers your physiological arousal. It stimulates the vagus nerve, which it runs from your brainstem down to your abdomen. When you extend your exhale, you are physically forcing your heart rate to slow down. You're signaling to your amygdala, the threat center, that you are safe.
So it's a biological all-clear signal?
It's an override code. Rice frames the breath as a deliberate interruption. You use this lever to interrupt the escalation of stress. If you are breathing slowly with a long exhale, your body literally cannot maintain a state of panic. The two states are physiologically incompatible.
That makes perfect sense on paper. But I want to push back on the practicality here, because when I'm in the middle of a crisis, the project is falling apart, my kid is screaming, I'm about to walk on stage, the last thing I remember to do is breathe. My instinct is to do something. Stopping to breathe feels passive, like I'm wasting time.
And that resistance is what she calls the high achiever's trap. We equate frantic activity with effectiveness. We think if we're rushing, we're working hard. But the manual asks us to reframe that. It's not passive, it's strategic. If you act from that frantic state, you are much more likely to make mistakes, or snap at someone, or miss a critical detail. The 3 seconds you waste taking a breath is more than regained by the clarity of your next action.
Okay, so how do we actually do this in the heat of the moment? If my brain is offline, what's the protocol?
Rice calls for interruption training. You need something simple enough to access when your higher cognitive functions are compromised. And the structure is this: 1 slow inhale, 1 longer exhale. Repeat twice.
Just twice. That seems way too easy.
It's not about the duration, it's about the shift. 1 slow inhale gathers your attention. 1 longer exhale engages the brake. Doing that just twice creates what she calls a wedge. Wedge of space between the stimulus and your response. Most of us live in reaction mode. Something happens, a trigger, and we immediately react. The breath creates a pause. And in that pause, you regain your agency. You get to choose your response.
I like that idea of a wedge. It sounds mechanical, like putting a doorstop in so the door doesn't just slam shut on you.
That's a great analogy. And we have to be really clear. This is not emotional suppression. Rice is not saying breathe so you don't feel angry.
Which is good, because sometimes I have every right to be angry.
Of course. Emotional suppression is dangerous. Regulation is completely different. Regulation means you feel the anger, but the anger doesn't possess you. You feel the intensity, but because you're breathing, you can express that anger with precision and authority, instead of just exploding in a way that undermines your credibility.
This connects directly to a part of the chapter I found really confronting, the link she makes between breath and authority.
Yes, this is where the manual speaks directly to women in leadership. Rice gives a very specific definition. Authority is regulated energy.
Authority is regulated energy. That really hit me hard, because I think culturally we often confuse authority with dominance. We think authority is the person who's the loudest or the fastest or who takes up the most space.
That's performative authority. It's brittle.
Yeah.
True authority, the kind that commands respect without demanding it, is rooted in stability. Think about the physical signs of someone losing control in a meeting. Their voice gets tight, high-pitched. Why? Because their vocal cords are literally constricted by tension. Their speech gets faster. Their posture gets rigid or collapses. They look unmoored.
And we've all seen that. And honestly, when I see a leader acting like that, I don't feel led. I just feel anxious myself. It's contagious.
It is. Nervous systems co-regulate. If the leader is in a state of sympathetic arousal, fight, or flight, the whole team unconsciously mirrors that. Panic is contagious. But calm is also contagious.
Let me play devil's advocate here, though. There's a real fear, especially for women in certain environments, that if we pause, if we take that breath, we look hesitant. We look like we don't know the answer. There's this pressure to fill the silence instantly to prove we're competent.
That's a deeply ingrained fear. But the biology suggests the opposite is true. When a person pauses and takes a grounded breath before they speak, they signal confidence. They signal that they're not threatened by the question. They're not rushing to please or to defend themselves.
So the pause is actually a power move.
It is a signal of high status. The alpha in the room is rarely the one hyperventilating. The one who controls their breath controls the energy of the room. When you regulate your breath, your pitch naturally lowers because the tension leaves your throat. Your posture steadies. You project this sense of, I have time. And in a crisis, the person who has time is the leader.
That brings us back to the book's concept of the clear zone. Can you define that for us again?
The clear zone is that state of coherence where your decisions feel intuitive and your boundaries are firm, but not harsh. You cannot enter the clear zone if you're physiologically compromised. So shallow breathing, that signals a departure from the clear zone. It signals you've slipped into reactivity.
So the breath is the passport back.
It's the only immediate way back.
Okay, let's get into the specifics. The wise woman practices. Rice gives us homework. And I love that it's not, go on a retreat. It's stuff you can do on a Tuesday.
There are 3 main practices in Chapter 2. The first is 3 slow breaths before important conversations.
So before I walk into the boardroom, or before I even open the Zoom link.
Exactly. Or before you walk into your house after a long day at work. That transition point is so critical. It resets your baseline. It ensures you enter that interaction from a place of regulation instead of carrying the stress of whatever came before.
I've started trying this, and, the hardest part is just remembering to do it.
And that is why the second practice is there. The daily practice of lengthening the exhale. This is conditioning work. You do it when you are not stressed, while you're driving, doing dishes, lying in bed.
Why practice when I'm already calm? It feels a little like practicing firefighting when there's no fire.
Because you're building a neural pathway. You're building a reflex. If you only try to deepen your breath when you're in a full-blown panic attack, it's going to feel impossible. The neural groove isn't deep enough. But if you practice when you're calm, your body learns the sensation. It starts to trust the mechanism. So when the pressure hits, the tool is right there, available to you.
That makes total sense. It's muscle memory. You don't learn how to swim during a shipwreck.
Precisely. And the third practice is the one-breath reset. This is for those moments of acute stress. The email lands in your inbox that makes your stomach drop. The glass breaks in the kitchen.
The moment where you just want to scream.
That's the moment the sympathetic system spikes. The goal is to catch it immediately. One deep breath. Reset. It prevents that initial spike from becoming a full spiral.
Rice uses the word stewardship a lot here, and I think that's such an important reframe because self-care has become this loaded term. It feels like an indulgence. Stewardship feels like a responsibility.
It's an important distinction. The wise woman isn't adding breathing exercises to her to-do list to be good at wellness. She's practicing stewardship of her body to sustain her leadership and her longevity. You cannot lead effectively if you're running on fumes and cortisol. Regulation is how you sustain your capacity.
It really emphasizes that this isn't about becoming someone new. It's about unlocking what's already there. We already know how to breathe. We forgot how to govern it.
We forgot how to govern it. And that's really what this chapter is teaching, self-governance, starting with physiology.
Towards the end of the chapter, she poses a reflection question. She asks, when does breathing become shallow, and what does that signal?
It's a diagnostic question.
When I sat with that one, I realized my breathing gets really shallow when I feel like I'm running out of time. That hurry sickness. It's almost like I think if I breathe faster, the world will move faster with me.
That's a very common trigger urgency. For others, it might be feeling judged or out of control. Structurally, what Rice is saying is that shallow breathing is your body's check engine light. It's just data. It signals a departure from the clear zone. And if you catch the shallow breath, you catch the stress response before it becomes a behavior you regret.
So the shallow breath isn't a failure, it's just information.
It's a signal that you've left your center. And the remedy is the Chapter 2 affirmation.
I have it right here. My breath steadies my body and strengthens my response.
Strengthens my response.
Yeah.
Let that land for a moment. It implies that a regulated response is a strong response. Reactivity is weak. Regulation is power.
That is such a flip from how we usually operate, isn't it? We think the loudest, fastest reaction is the strongest one. But Rice is saying no strength is steady. Strength is controlled.
And that control begins with physiology. That's the whole takeaway. You don't have to fix your entire life today. You don't have to solve the whole crisis in the next 10 seconds. You just have to regulate your nervous system.
So, to recap our journey so far, Chapter 1 gave us stillness, which is awareness. Chapter 2 has given us breath, which is regulation.
And this sets the stage perfectly for where we're going next. Because once the body is regulated, once the noise of the nervous system has quieted down, you finally have the capacity to deal with the mind.
Which leads us to Part 1, Chapter 3, govern your thoughts.
Stillness created awareness, breath created regulation, and next, thought discipline will create direction. You can't direct a mind that's attached to a frantic body. But now that we have the breath, we're ready to look at the thoughts themselves.
I have a feeling that one is going to be a challenge, but for now, the mission is clear. Just breathe. Not because it's mystical, but because it works.
Use the lever. Extend the exhale. Signal safety.
And remember, this isn't about becoming someone else. It's about unlocking the wise woman who is already there, just waiting for you to calm down enough to hear her. We'll see you in the next deep dive for Chapter 3. Until then, take a breath.
And let it out slowly.